Hello gang, it's Dave Arundel from Arundel Guitars here. Yesterday was the Haydock, the Northwest Guitar Show, so we are talking May 2023. I sold my last lefty to this guy. He was an absolute legend. However, that was my last left-handed guitar. Now I have to take a beautiful piece of, I think it is Honduran mahogany. I've written it on here somewhere. I lie, it's Kaya. It's African Kaya mahogany. One piece of that. Same log, port sawn, lovely piece of neck wood. I have an ebony fretboard, which is glorious too. I have some hand wound PAF humbuckers that I've wound myself. These are glorious too. Some locking tuners, some tail pieces and all the rest of it, and everything that a growing human being needs for a Les Paul Junior. I think this piece of wood is too nice to be sticking under bits of maple and things like that, so this is just going to be a Junior. I like simplistic guitars, and it's as close as the Gibson Fable ever got to my favourite guitar, which is a Telecaster. So they're simple, they're as pretty much as you can get to just loveliness. So yeah, let's give it a go. Let's use good quality stuff for a left-handed guitar. I'm not sure if you guys know that I'm actually a lefty myself, but when I was 16 and learning to play the guitar, I went into shops and there were no left-handed guitars. So I said, right, I'm going to learn to play right-handed if I'm starting from scratch. Let's do it. Best decision I ever made, to be honest. I love playing the guitar. It gives me so much joy, and I love watching other people play my stuff and that big smile on their face. It's great. So I think it's time for me to give a little nod back to the lefties that didn't do what I did and learn to play right-handed. And I'm going to take this and turn it into something for them. Happy days. Okay, stage one complete, which is chop out the basic shape on my bandsaw. Now we take yonder template, stick it on, go around the edge with a template router. Okay, so routed out the basic shape. Now a couple of things that I want to do. I'll pop this template on instead, which gives me my humbucker cavity placements. Splendid. Same on this one. Most Les Paul, did I call it a Junior early on? Specials have the switch plate down in the cavity there. I like it up there, so I'm going to keep it up there. I'm not honestly sure it does, I can't remember. Either way, I like it up there, that's where it's going. And the other nice thing is about this, I can just pop this in here, marry it up so that everything's in the centre, and use that little bit of sticky tape. I'll just pop you in there. Now, these should be that everything matches up properly to give me the right scale length. I'm always a bit dubious. I'm going to put a couple of marks in for these. These are fine, that's not a problem. These are the marks for my controls. Also not a problem. I use a Forstner bit on there to make sure I get the right size radius and find the centre of that hole. Everything on that side of stuff I'm kind of chilled with. It's just I'm always going to check that scale length again. So I'm just going to mark up those. Set of 4s and a bits, and what I will do is use the appropriate sizes. Bigger. You watch, these will be blended, and there's the centre of that hole. I thought for one second there that we were going to have to do the whole metric imperial thing again. So just to show you, so we actually have an indentation now. So I can cut all those out, and now I'm going to just go on to route out these cavities. Okay, so here is a CTS pot. So that's going to need a 10mm hole, which is that one. I need a drill. So I'll mark these out from this side, just to make my life a little bit easier. Run the drill backwards for the first couple of mils. Saves on a bit of tear out. So like I say, I only want these whole enough because there is going to be a controlled cavity here. Voila. And now I can just check. Yes, they go in. Beautifully splendid, marvellous. Yeah. So that's those. My posts. This are my posts. So you measure on the non-knurled bit, so that's 11.4 4. So it's going to give it to do a 12mm hole. And of course I'm going to go 13 there. So I will use my 10 to just mark up. And the nice thing about using these Forstner bits are you can tell that you're going dead straight because you've got a little kind of bit there and you can make sure that you angle it in. It's ever so nice. Like so, that you can see. So those are marked. I'm not going to mark those yet, I'm just going to leave those as a prominent dent, and whether or not I want to change that or not is up to me later on. But the nice thing is, because you turn the whole thing round, it obviously puts it on for lefty straight away. Worth mentioning before I put the bloody bridge on the wrong place. Meh. Okay, depth of each of these cavities. So with these particular, like I say, PAF styles, they're not vintage correct. I never wanted them to be. They literally have to be the depth of the screws as a minimum. So that's 27.6. I'll call that 30. Obviously, if I measure 30 on here, you're going to see that we get nowhere near the depth, so 30 is fine. For both of these, obviously what you tend to find is that that particular one is going to be much flatter to the board, this one's going to be higher. The relevance being that this particular bridge pickup can be a little bit deeper because you've got a few extra mil here. It depends on the angle that you want the neck brake to be, which depends on your bridge. It matters not one jot if I make it too deep, it does matter if I make it too shallow. So we'll put them both at 30. And in order to do that, okay, so we've got the routed out pocket there. The next plan of action is, as you can see, I've gone down in several passes there, which means that with a shallow bit, I always end up with a slightly kind of obvious, looks like sedimentary lines. So I will go over that with a single pass with a appropriately sized round bit, which is that is not. That one I just dropped was. Bastard. Yeah, all right, I'll fish that out and I'll do that next. All right, so that's those cavities nicely routed out and all looking splendid. Those fit in quite pleasantly. So now I'm going to flip this over, do another template on the back, which is that one. So as I've got all the routing cavities and yaddy daddy da da da. Splendid. Put that in. On with the vacuum. On with the noise. So there we have the various cavities routed out. The CTS little pots fit in beautifully. Those come down to just about the right height, so yay! Okay, so next thing to do now that those cavities are cut is to make sure that the recesses for the cover, which I'm going to use this piece of sapele, is sorted. So we will measure the thickness of that, which is a shade under 3mm, so I'll make that about 2.5mm depth, and we'll cut those cavities out. And there, those little recesses all nicely planed in. So the next thing to do is get my piece of sapele, make the relevant shape marked on for each section, and cut those out. Okay, and straight off the sander, those are in. They're going to need a little bit of refinement, but I'm going to leave them as very tight fitting as possible right now so that I can get the screw holes in place. Okay, confession time, I've made a boo-boo. As I was drilling I'll show you, holes to go through into the various cavity, so as I can get wires from here to here to here to here and down into the cavity. This happened. I've gone too close to the edge, which means that that screw hole no longer has any purpose. So I've had to build a new plate. Took me a whole kind of 3 or 4 minutes, and I've just had to move that screw hole over to there now. Hey ho, it happens. Okay, next bit to do is just put a little round over on here. So what I intend to do is I get my router, with a bit more lead on it, and I just turn it down on its micro bit with the round over bit until I start to just touch the edge. And I will slowly bring that down in increments until I get a nice even round over. I shall show you. So with that first turn, not quite enough. Nearly there. I reckon one more half turn will be touch more, keep going. Spot on. Absolutely spot on. So that's where I want to be. I'll go and do the whole thing. All right, and there she is with a nice curve. I'm not sure if you saw on the time-lapse video because it didn't look particularly clear, but I've softened off the edge a la sort of Strat style, just a little smidge, just to sort of let your hand be a little bit more comfy. And then I realised, of course, it's a bloody lefty, so I need to do it on this side. So I'm going to go and do that next. There, we have an equally soft side round there now. Happy days. Bleeding idiot. Okay, final job du jour is to cut the neck tenon. And as you can see, we have a laser beam coming down the middle there. So that is attached to the midline here, and I've just put the neck in the right position for the tenon. Now, a couple of things that I want to make sure is, firstly, I never cut off a template to do this. It's not that I don't particularly trust them, it's just they always seem to be a little bit sloppy. So I'd far rather take a knife and actually trace down the side there, get a really nice sharp edge, and do it that way. So by that, I'm going to leave the laser beam on. I'm going to get a fresh blade and pop that in my knife. Now the nice thing about these are that they're angled, so I can make sure that I am absolutely on alignment. Hold it in position, angle it in slightly. And just score down on each side. And that slight angulation really gets me into the corner and allows me, if I now take that away, to have lovely scored lines. What I can do now is that I've actually cut through the wood, is take those nice fresh marks, deepen them off, and now I can use my chisel to get down either side there into a point where I can then get my router in, and that will give me a really nice snug fit. Splendid. You can see the way that that comes down to my cut line very nicely. Oh, splinter. Ow. Haven't had one of those in ages. Didn't quite touch. I've got to turn my camera around now to get to the other bit. Hang on. Okay. So it's the same again, just taking away a little corner. And that's now going to give me enough to run. Come out, you bastard. There we are. That's now going to give me enough to run the router edge up to. I'll take out this middle section dead easy, and then I can run the router up against that edge and get a nice flush cut. And there we go, just cut that down a little bit to size so that joint is spot on. That goes right up the middle. That's cut down now just with the, excuse me, just with a slightly wider chisel, and I've taken that down, so as you can see now that I've got a little rebaked rabbit, call it what you like, to get in there and do the thing. Okay, so this is all sanded back to 320 now. So what I need to do now is do my partial grain fill. And in order to do that, I use good old True Oil, blob a bit on and spread it round. Now, it immediately makes a lovely colour. And what I'm trying to do, as you can see, I've taped up all of the bits that I don't need oil in, especially on the basis that the copper shielding stuff is not partial to sticking to oil. So I smash on a layer of this, and then what I'm going to do is take the 400 grit and use an oily sandy paste to grain fill. So get that in there, Get some 400 grit. Where are you? 400. Get some 400 grit onto a bit of paper. And then I'm going to work that oil with the flat into the grain. And in about 20 minutes time, you can already start to see it starting to sort of paste up. In about 20 minutes time, this will be solid enough so I can go back with some dry paper and that will help me tremendously. Now, the one thing about this is you can't use water-based stains. So this will be an alcohol-based stain that I'm using on here. I think I'm going to go blue because one of my favourite guitars that I've seen in ages was a Gibson ES335 in a really sort of royal blue. It looked bloody marvellous. It was actually on a YouTube video from a guy that was playing with John Mayer. And as much as I'm not a John Mayer fan, the dude, that's needs new tape completely. The dude had an awesome guitar. It was on a live version with Letterman, and the guy was playing an ES335 on a song called Dear Marie, which is an okay song. You can't really pull it off unless you are a megastar, because it's all about being a megastar. But all of that besides, the guitar was such a cool colour. So there's this lovely paste. See that there? Okay. So the idea is that that rubs in and you get a reasonable grain fill. So I'm not a big fan of the actual grain fillers themselves. I try and keep things as natural as I can. So this gives me everything that I need with a smooth finish. You might have to do it 2 or 3 times to get a really good finish if you want it dead flat. I'm not a dead flat fan, as I've probably gone through in other videos. There's a little bit there that needs sanding off. Can you see it? Just hit that with some 240 and redo. Just hit with that some 120 and then 240. A bit of 120. Where's my 120? Bit of 120. Soon abolishes it. $240. Dry 400. Oil. Goopy paste. Begotten small imperfection. So that's first go at that one. I will continue with this. We'll do the whole bloody thing, and then it'll be time for staining. then, so we've got 3 different colours to go for from these alcohol based. We have Forget Me Not, we have Blackberry, and we have Navy. So I've got the offcuts from the body, I've grain filled it, I've done the same oily process. Let's see what occurs. We shall start with the Forget Me Not. Stick a little bit of that on a sponge and let's see how that comes out. So that is pretty green. This is why you test on a spare bit, because that's the colour that it's coming off as, and that's the colour that you get. And we'll put you there. Now let's move on to the Blackberry. That do its thing, because a good thing about alcohol bases are they don't evaporate quick. Ooh, come back. So that's probably a little truer to its colour. And then let's try the Navy. Now the Navy in fact comes out brown. Well, as far as I'm concerned, we have an absolute winner straight away there. The Blackberry wins. There we go. So those dry off mega quick. As you can see, they are staying quite nicely on there. Not a chance, probably not a chance. I wonder what would happen if I get that half of that on there. Meh, bit green. Can never tell realistically until we've got the true oil over it as well. So let's just get a bit of that and see. And this gives you a good indication of the real colour. For me, I would go straight that one. I think the Blackberry is the way forward. Don't know about you guys. I like that one. And there we go. We have a Blackberry coloured guitars. Actually, I quite like it. It's bluer once you've got a few coats on it and you've given it a good rub down. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes with the black pick guards and the nickel, but yeah, good start. And there we have a few coats of the lacquer applied. As you can see, it has got the typical kind of orange peel to it, so I'm going to leave that a couple of days now, and then once that's hardened off I can flat sand that and start to get a nice finish on it. Cool, dude.